Good morning or good afternoon for you East Coasters here. It is I, Rafa, and Joshi, a dynamic duo. Although you're a little bit in the dark there, Joshi. I don't know if you want to scoot up a little bit. I want to see your beautiful face, man.
It's
It's been a
it's
long time.
early, Mark. It's still before noon here on the West Coast. I don't know what you're expecting us to do.
It is what it is. They asked us to come in early today, and so here we are. But as you heard the analyst desk, we do have No Org taking on Evil Geniuses Prodigies today. A lot of favoritism over for No Org, although Kelsey, living evil as she is elected for the Young Prodigies to take this matchup here, Josh.
Yeah, elected or contractually obligated because there is a pretty big difference
True.
between how these two teams are expected to play today. And, a lot of us were looking at No Org at the very beginning of the season before anybody had played. Smacks, Dimitri, and I all did our tier list, and we had this organization or this roster at the absolute top of how we were expecting them to perform. And it started off they did fine, but they weren't necessarily at the tippy top of where we were expecting them to play. And now, as the Proving Grounds Tier 2 tournaments are starting to come to a close, they're really starting to show what we were expecting to see from them this entire time. And I can't wait to see them go up against Evil Geniuses.
Yeah, it's very similar to how we saw a previous iteration of Five Fire's old team back on a new esports during the scouting ground season of the prior year, where in the beginning, on paper, we thought, oh man, this team is going to be super good. But it didn't really work out that well. But once finally the team got their kinks worked out, now this team has a clear identity. And you know what that identity is, Josh? It's play around Viper, baby. You got to get him snowballing, got to get him accelerated. And with the amount of experience that Anda brings in the jungle, being able to coordinate with Five Fire, who is playing things like the Twisted Fate, like the Zoe, being able to get priority and move on up towards the top side of the map and just get Viper rolling. I mean, this is what Evil Geniuses Prodigies should be expecting. And if they don't know this by now, then they're going to be in a world of trouble as we get ready for the draft phase here, Josh.
Yeah, I'm really looking at this today, and I'm going to be looking for a lot of decisiveness and a lot of deliberate choices coming up from Evil Geniuses Prodigies, because as Kelsey's already talked about the arms race quite a bit, you got Viper up in the top lane who has so much power behind him. He's going to be getting so much attention paid to his lane. And then the opposite side, Shiro and Mist are going to have to try and abuse the fact that Big tends not to be in lane, and Value is going to be all on his own. So you have to be very decisive. Do you want to try and counteract Viper up in the top lane, or do you want to try and prey on Value in the bottom lane? Because you can't really do both, and if you try and do halfway measures, you're probably going to get run over.
So far for No Org, they are targeting one of Tomio's go-to staples in that Udyr, despite the jungle changes slightly nerfing the oppressiveness of trying to just power farm your way to victory. It's still a good champion for Evil Geniuses to be able to act through, but they've taken away the Twisted Fate away from Five Fire as well as the Thresh. So I wonder, as No Org take away this Kaisa, that Evil Geniuses Prodigies might be setting up for a Rel first pick here. Or, assuming that the Senna or the Seraphine are still not on the table.
Yeah, I mean, the Rel is going to be very powerful. You have a lot of options available to it. And I have to imagine we're going to see Seraphine banned away. Not as expecting it to be on the blue side, though. We have been seeing this kind of popping up a little bit more as a blue side ban, simply because you don't want to deal with it. You don't really want to pick it if it's not going to be suiting your style, and you want to just get it off the board. Because if you can't first pick it, you give it over to the other team, it's so hard to play around. Like, if you don't have a very dedicated team, if you haven't figured out how to play against it very specifically, you're going to have a tough time. So they're going to be taking that away. And so this kind of does pave the path, as you said, for something like a Rel first pick coming out for Mist. And this will be a very good champion if you're trying to shut down and prey on the fact that Value going to be all alone. But instead, opting for the Olaf.
Not quite. All right. Well, Olaf being the other apt power farmer available on the Rift here now that the Udyr is gone. It does leave things for No Org to be able to pick the Rel if they want to go for that. There is no Senna on the table, so picking Tahm Kench with that combo doesn't seem like the best option if you want to put something for Big to be able to power farm on as well. Now, one thing that they could do here, Josh, is that they could reveal their early game plans for the jungle pick. We know that Elisa has been kind of a staple, but there's the Rel. It's going to be locked in for Big. And now, do we show our hand here for No Org in their jungle pick, or do they look for an ADC to pair with the Rel right away?
Honestly, they're both pretty natural options here. You can pick up the jungle because you know it's not going to be contested any further. And if you think you have something strong against the Olaf, you don't want to let it go to the second phase of bans. The question is, is Olaf really the tippy top of the meta? Can you play around it in different ways? With the changes to the jungle, it does a couple of things, right? Obviously, it makes the junglers a little bit weaker than you had previously expected, but it's not a huge difference. But it does mean that if you're able to start counter jungling, if you're able to start taking away their camps, suddenly they are so much poorer than they were before, because if they're working with half the income and that income is even smaller than it was, you're not going to have almost anything in. On the Nidalee says that he's not really necessarily going to be trying to farm quite as heavily as much as he's going to be looking up top lane and trying to help out Viper.
So a couple of natural options for No Org if they want to go for it is setting up this Nidalee for success, meaning they lock in champions in the solo lanes that have point-and-click CC to be able to set up for those spears. Renekton has been something of pretty devastating combo, obviously, but I wouldn't, as Evil Geniuses, try to lock in that Renekton right away as they go for the Syndra instead, because we know Viper has plenty of counterpick options for that Crocodile and instead. So now No Org, they have a chance. They're not necessarily forced to pick up Renekton right here, because they can always wait and save R5 option for Viper in the top lane.
Yeah, and we obviously know that Viper loves playing marksman up in the top lane. We've been seeing a lot of Vayne throughout this season. We've also been seeing him play things like the Callista fairly recently, as what Smax has alluded to, the natural evolution. Picking up the Vayne simply because you're more active early on in the game. But now, seeing as we're going to be expecting Big to be leaving the lane, you need to pick something relatively safe. Ezreal getting picked up for value, going to make him much more resilient to these dives, going to be leaving him much more self-sufficient throughout all these team fights, because No Org already looking to play very aggressive across the map. And with the Olaf already picked up, it looks like No Org are going to try and limit some of these strong picks with gank assist up in the top lane from Serdi.
And one thing I want to point out, Josh, is that so far No Org actually has the makings of a little bit of a poke and siege composition. Ezreal, especially with this new Essence Reaver Duskblade build, paired with the spears from Anda. We know that Anda's not the type of player that's going to go Moonstone and Staff for Nidalee. He's going to go for Night Harvester and try to empower those spears even further. So if this mid game comes off to a great start for No Org, we can see a world where if Evil Geniuses don't have enough hard engage, which they kind of already do in the Alistar, No Org could just look to get some disengage here, and then you can really empower.
Interesting. Okay.
Are we seeing an Ezreal solo lane from Viper?
It's not completely out of the question. I've seen Aphelios up in the top lane back when he was first released, but it wasn't something that was particularly impressive across the board. Worth noting, this Shen ban is a misfortune ban, actually, so trying to take things away from Shiro and limiting their ability to play that. Okay, so the Aphelios is not the actual pick here. We're going to be pivoting pretty hard, so I don't want to speculate too hard. I see you're frozen with shock.
Yeah. It is.
All right.
Okay. All right. The gig is up. It was just a debate. This is more than likely this is a 5-fire pick. We've seen him take the set mid multiple times out. And yeah, so remember, guys, it is a misfortune ban for No Org, so it's going to be Shen blind pick for starting the top lane. This is something that he and the rest of Evil Geniuses Prodigies have been using to great success in a lot of their wins. However, there is still a counterpick option for Viper, and we are getting the Jinx from Shiro. I know a couple of my colleagues have been waiting for this pick to arrive, but I didn't realize that Shiro would be the one sporting it today.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. If you're not expecting to be playing for the lane very much, Jinx is going to be able to farm relatively freely and then come later on into the game with a ton of damage. And with the number of threats that have been existing in League of Legends recently, it's not too difficult to just tack a Jinx onto your composition and just say, hey, everybody else is going to be playing for the early game, and now we have some late game insurance coming in Shiro's Jinx. And oh, interesting. So I was actually really surprised to see No Org opting to pick up the set, because obviously it is flexible between the top lane and the mid lane, as is the Sylas, but neither of these champions are well known for dunking on Shen. They have the ability to play rather aggressively, and Viper can be very confident in his ability to play up against Serdi, but Sylas in particular can have kind of a weak early game in a lot of ways, simply because he doesn't have a lot of base stats to play with, whereas Shen, his first couple levels, his Q does absolutely insane damage every time you're looking to go for a 2v2. So I'm surprised to see this, because the Olaf Shen should be consistently beating either Set or Sylas plus Nidalee up in the top lane every time.
Not to mention that when it comes to gank setup for Nidalee Spears, I mean, Facebreaker's cool, and Abscon Abduct is also cool, but it's not like, it's not the easiest to execute when it comes to ensuring that those spears will connect. And so I wonder what the game plan is for No Org here, because, you know, Josh, as you said before, neither of these 2v2s necessarily win in No Org's favor, so this is really kind of a weird bypass from No Org, because normally we would see strong 2v2s ensuring for the top side of the map, and then that way Anda's able to bully himself into Tomio's jungle and then win Viper's lane that way for him. But if this is the lane matchup that we're getting, then either No Org are just saying, yeah, you guys think that it's not winning, but we're gonna win this lane anyway, or we are I don't know, Josh. We're definitely not buying it as well as they are, but we'll have to wait and see.
I'm not convinced, because the other thing that we haven't even touched on yet is the fact that they have very little access to Jinx at this point with this pick, right? You're not necessarily going to be having this huge burst of damage in order to win the frontline trade. You're not going to be beating Jinx in the front-to-back style of team fighting, and now you don't have a way to really get around it without these really big flanks coming in from Viper and Flyfire, which we know they're capable of, but it leaves them very vulnerable if they get caught out. They need to have fantastic vision control, and No Org, while they're no slouches in that regard, haven't been known for being super proactive with their vision in order to try and create plays elsewhere. They're very lane focused, and this not only means that they're playing for the early game in that regard, but also later on, it's kind of how they tend to play, you know, when they're forced to split. They are very focused on the new lane assignments. So I think No Org is at a spot where their primary winning condition is just being good players, which we know that they can do.
Yeah. And, I mean, we've definitely seen them execute on that time and time again, but it's not my favorite win condition here, because the one time that they get ego-checked and then they lose, then it's like, all right, guys, you know, well, now you're down a game in this best of 5, and Evil Genius's Prodigies will have the momentum swing. Whereas this EG composition makes a lot of sense to the most part. You have this Olaf as this bridge for the early game, making sure that you don't get blown out early, and then if you are able to stall enough towards that mid-late game, this Jinx is going to be a monster, and once you get resets upon resets, she just starts shredding through the entire opposition. As we finally load up onto the Rift, I don't anticipate we're going to get any early shenanigans, but then again, Josh, we do have some members invading onto the bottom side jungle.
All right, I really like what Viper's doing here, using the E to just go over the wall, making sure that they can see people as they move around, and this is pretty darn good too. They're going to be starting with the red trinket. They get a lot of vision down, and they're forcing Tomio on the opposite side to go put down the ward on the opposite red buff. There it is, as he's in the middle of backing, get the red trinket, and then come back in a very dangerous position while all of No Org has an opportunity to just set up. And even with the Olaf, it's going to be difficult for him to face check all of the skill shots that the members of No Org have.
They did get an early ward down onto Anda's red buff, so they'll be able to see, but with Anda and the rest of the members in value and big starting on the bottom side of the map, it's going to force Tomio to get a late start here, as he's going to have to walk all the way towards the top side of the map. And now Anda has an opportunity to opt into a vertical jungle trade with Tomio.
Yeah, and note the fact that Tomio isn't actually going to be having an option to clear out some of the wards. He's going to get spotted. You're actually going to see in just a moment, as I remember all of my tools. Wow, look at that, look at that. There's wards here, which he didn't spot, and there's a ward here, which he also didn't spot. He's not able to clear... Oh, wait, hold on. I got to... There, now you can see it. he's not going to be able to clear out any of these. He doesn't know what's going on in this situation. He doesn't know how he's going to be able to move around, and it's going to be giving Onda a lot of freedom to dictate how this early pathing goes in ways that Tomio's going to have difficulty responding to.
You know, as we see Tomio starting pathing towards the top side, we'll be able to clear the Krugs. Anda is matching tempo at the moment. I don't know if Value and Big are actually preparing for a potential dive. Both of Mist and Shiro are level 1, and they're going to force them off the way, but Anda is actually on level 2. He didn't hit level 3. He didn't finish off his Krugs, so this is not the best dive, but they are forcing Shiro away from XP because he's not in range to get more creeps. Mist does get some damage down into Big, and Anda is going to be slowed down for this. What did they get out of that? Shiro lost about a wave of creeps of experience and gold?
Yeah, so that's going to be pretty helpful, honestly. You know, obviously, you don't have to necessarily get access to the Jinx if the Jinx never gets strong. And just making sure that they are limiting themselves in CS is going to be helpful. But it does mean that Tomio going to be a lot faster with some of these clears. He's going to have an option to do what he wants now. He lost a lot of tempo being seen on the wards, but he's going to be able to get it right on back. He's going to be able to be first to these crabs, and you can see him go side to side.
Oh, I kind of wanted to see what happened top. It looked like Viper was about to go down, but he manages to make it out. He's going to have to recall here. Fire also pretty low. Hey, Josh, remember when we said that both of these solo lanes were not necessarily winning here? Now, Fire does have insane base health regen on this set. He is playing a game of fire.
Oh,
his name would say, oh, no. Well, Aspect doesn't have enough mana, but the slow might be enough if Tomio thinking about potentially
He still got W.
In,
he still got Haymaker, buddy.
Yeah. The shield is pretty enough. Viper does get the teleport back down onto the top lane, and now he's slow pushing in this giant wave into Surdy. So this will give Viper a chance to potentially go for some vision control into the top of Tomio's jungle, but doesn't opt for it. Just goes for a defensive ward.
I gotta cut you off because this is super, super dangerous for Viper right now. He's pushing out. He doesn't have a teleport available, and now, just now, he sees Olaf. That might be able to run him down.
He still has flash. He's going to be forced off of this slow push wave that he's trying to get into Surdy. But if Surdy is able to play this right, he might be able to freeze it. But just as I say that, it's the last Q in. Now this wave will be absorbed by the turret.
This is very, very different to the arms race that we were all expecting, right? We were all expecting Andre spending a lot of time top lane. Instead, he's doing the Krugs for a second time, doesn't even have a chance to complete them. But across the map, Viper is just kind of left to his own devices, and I really want to see Tomio actually spend more time here. There's no vision, but they're teleporting bot.
They're using the Nidalee trap to be able to get Fire an easy way onto the back line. Remember, Mist and Shiro still kind of down in levels, but Mist is level 4, where Shiro's only level 3. They're going to go for Mist first. He gets the flash out and trying to dodge turret aggro as much as he can, but Fire's still taking turret aggro, and they're just going to leave him to die because Aspect is on the way. No,
that was trash.
Jesus. Guys, what's happening?
That was one of the worst dives I have ever seen. And now Viper, I mean, he's got Conquer. He's going to be able to kill Surdy here. That was a bit misjudged there from the Shen, but like, actually, what in the world were they doing bot lane? Values took the first turret, and then Fire was like, nah, we still got this. We missed all of our crowd control, and maybe they turn it now, but like, what?
I mean, Mist still doesn't have flash, but Tomio's here. Where's Anda? They're opting in for this 2v2. They pick up Mist, but Big is going to be traded over, and now Shiro has 2 kills to his name, so who really wins out on this trade?
It's not Noorg. It's not Noorg at all. They did such a good job at limiting his early farming, but they tried to dive again. Set's not level 6. You don't have any easy crowd control. He misses his E, decides to go in anyway, and they just miss all of their crowd control. They just gotta be happy with the flashes. Oh, man. I'm just so worried for Noorg at this point because they're supposed to be strong on the 1 to 2 item mark, and Jinx is supposed to be a bit weak. But, I mean, just watch how poorly this is played, right? You get the flash out of Jinx, and then Fire misses his E, and then he's like, we're going anyway. Don't worry. Spear hits a minion. Like, Confidence is good, Mark. Arrogance is bad. And that was one of the most arrogant plays I have ever seen, and why we criticized them early on in the season, because they were doing stuff like this all the time.
We definitely saw No Org hit a stride where they started taking things seriously and weren't as complacent, but we're starting to see that a little bit again as they're going for plays that either maybe should work if the execution is right, but it was definitely not clean. Now, Viper, off the back of that solo kill, does have an opportunity to extend this lane advantage even further, being able to opt towards what I believe is going to be a Leandri's Torment Rush for this Sylas. So he's going to be able to deal a little bit of extra percentage damage and have more ability haste to just spam those abilities onto Surdy in this top lane. And always be able to take that Shen ultimate in case he needs to join the bottom side of the map again.
Yeah. So I think we might be reverting at this point to what the original plans kind of were, right? You see Viper has been able to create a small advantage for himself, whereas the bottom lane is now in a spot where you can't really try and dive the Jinx anymore. You have to start looking towards the opposite side of the map, and just as we say that, we're seeing 6 members already here for the top side. This dive has to go well.
All right, well, Surdy doesn't have flash from before. They got the damage down. Haymaker for the true damage is going to be enough, thanks to the burn from the skirmisher savers from Anda. Fire does have the flash out of this one. But Viper, oh my god. Well, good flash. Just barely escaping the the torment of that unleashed power from Aspect as Tomio and mid laner came up for reinforcements. Unfortunately, they weren't able to save Surdy, but now Big is here.
Oh.
Miss is going to be here as well, but if Tonio doesn't get out, Flash is going to be burned from the jungle for Evil Genius Prodigies, but now Miss has an opportunity to turn things around, and once again, No Org might have overstayed their welcome a bit, and they lose too.
I'm frustrated, Mark. I'm really frustrated watching No Org play right now because we were talking them up so much, like they figured it out. They know how to play League of Legends again. And, you know, this is good. This is really borderline. This is the kind of play that, you know, we've talked about Kelsey really liking, these plays that aren't necessarily super clear-cut and you have to outplay them. They did that. And then they waited for Surdy to be alive again and have Stand United. So, like, if this is a play you want to go for, you got to do it like 3 or 4 seconds faster, but they wait a little bit too long. Aspects is still here, and Mist has been able to roam around. Yeah, you have value in the bottom lane, not at risk of dying, but you can't be giving over these advantages on the opposite side of the map. And as we've said many, many times, this game is not going to be getting easier for No Org as the game continues to go on. They're going to have tougher and tougher times getting to the Jinx, who has been able to free farm up against this Ezreal for the past several minutes. And, like, yeah, go for these aggressive plays. Show that you're good players, but you still have to make good plays. Like, you can't just make bad plays and make them good all of the time. So we'll see if they can actually recover from this, because they've dug themselves a huge hole.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that Shiro got gifted 2 kills early on in the game. So, and we all know what happens once the Jinx starts getting fed. We talk about Jinx having probably one of the weaker laning phase out of the 80 carry roster available. But I mean, if you bypass that, then you really are off to a good start. If you're Shiro, it does already have the Berserker Greaves, which is going to be great for being able to catch up in resets if they want to look for this dragon. Tomio and the rest of the members of Evil Geniuses are here first. We know that No Org do have vision of it thanks to the Scuttle Crab, but looks like it's going to be conceded over to EG.
Yeah, and at this point, it's going to be super, super difficult for No Org to contest any of these dragons. Oh, okay. It was a good try. It was a good try. But it's so difficult for them to walk into any of these objectives if they're not there first, because, you know, I'm not super big on Syndra, but one of the things that she does really, really well is she punishes people for trying to face check objectives. Face check these bushes where they don't have vision, because if Syndra's there and is able to stun you up, she's going to be doing a ton of damage to you all at once. And you also can't walk into things like Tomio's Olaf or Miss Alistar, because they can just lock you down. They can have enough damage to actually burst you out almost instantly. And as Anda is now moving up to the top side in order to try and get Viper a lead once again, it's getting cut off by the fact that this is a very readable play. This is how No Org normally plays, and Tomio spending time up here in order to limit Anda's ability to play to this Sylas is just going to limit their opportunities to do so.
And frankly, Josh, it's a little too late. I mean, normally when we've seen this attention put towards Viper, it was before the 10-minute mark. It was as early as 4 or 5 minutes, but you know, with the plays that they made trying to focus down to the bot side of the map, when you have an Ezreal and a Rel, I mean, you don't need to do that. Normally we pick Ezreal because we know that Value's going to play weak side, which he does incredibly well for this team every single time. And all these botch plays towards the bottom side of the map have really slowed down what could have been a nasty snowball coming out from no org. Now, that's a beautiful spear, but unfortunately, Firefire doesn't have flash to be able to set up the face breaker to follow up and look for lethal on the aspect. So, however, Firefire does have an opportunity to push in this lane, and maybe he can roam and get some vision down.
We'll see. Yeah, I still think it's correct for Noorg to try and put Viper further ahead at this point, because he's going to limit the opportunities for EGP to play a split push, because Shen won't be able to survive up against Sylas later on in the game. Sylas is going to get stronger and stronger as the game goes on, and Shen is, you know, in terms of his raw dueling power, is a little bit past his prime right now. He's going to stay relevant against most characters. He should still be able to split against the set reasonably well, but not against Sylas, because there's so much sustain built into Sylas's kit. He's got the Conqueror, he can take these long fights, and as turrets start to go down, it's going to be easier and easier for Viper to run down Surdy in these long lanes. So if you can bring this Rift Herald up top lane, if you can take down this turret and make this lane a lot longer, it becomes very dangerous for the Shen to continue laning against Sylas.
And one of the things that we know from past compositions involving Shen, mainly for EGP, is the way you dismantle that strategy is to attack the Shen. And this is exactly what they're going to do. Anda has the Rift Herald here. Viper's putting a couple more auto attacks. We got a teleport coming in from Firefire. No teleport from Aspect to answer. Tomio is here, however, but with the Showmaker, it's enough damage to put down onto Surdy. Now he's gone. But the Rift Herald hasn't expired quite yet, so Tomio still has a little bit of safety to work with as Firefire goes to auto-attack the turret, but Tomio's got nowhere to run now. Aspect tries to come in, but is a little too late, flashing out. Viper on the chase, looking for more Abscon Ogducks to be able to go in, but Big comes over the wall with the Flash Ferromancy, and the Magnet Storm will pull him in for another kill.
All right, they figured it out, Mark. They're back on track. They found their homework. They found their notes. She's like, oh, yeah, that's the formula that we need in order to win the game. They're able to finally find it. And on the other side, yeah, they have a good recognition that value is all alone. They're able to dive in under turret because you got this Alistar. He doesn't take any damage from the structures, but it is in no way an even trade. The arms race absolutely getting picked up here for no org. They get the full turret, they get 3 kills, and yeah, you give over a turret on the bottom side and the kills to Shiro, but suddenly you might have a way to actually play the game out. You're still gonna have a big problem in team fights because Shiro is so strong on this Jinx, but you're not necessarily going to be losing these split pushers. You're not going to be having no win conditions. They finally find themselves a way back into the game.
Right. And I have to say, when I said, frankly, they're a little too late, I was wrong. I admit it. You know, it's so hard when you're used to them just like doing things as early as 5 minutes. You're like, oh man, well this isn't part of the plan. This is part of the script. What do we do from here? But no org just being able to continuously step on the gas and putting down the pressure. They still have time, as now they're hitting one-item wake-ups for a lot of these champions. This is where, like, Nidalee is going to be insanely strong. Even has the Oblivion Orb for extra Grievous Wounds, which is going to be great against the likes of Olaf. As that's pretty much it. I mean, Shiro probably is running Legend Bloodline, and he's running Conquer as well, so it will cut down on the healing in some of these fights. But like you said, Josh, we need to bring up the fact that there still really isn't a reliable way to hit Shiro in these fights, or in terms of backline access.
Yeah. And this is really good from Noorg as well, because we said it was very, very difficult for them to walk in to places without vision. That's also true for EGP. If they are going to be showing up second to a lot of these places, it's going to take a lot of aggression and a lot of tanky stats in order to walk through the Nidalee Spears and Ezreal Qs that are going to be raining from the fog of war that you can't really dodge just because you don't have vision. You don't know they're coming in. Human reaction speed is unfortunately not fast enough to do anything about that. And so now that they're equalizing on the dragons a little bit, they will buy themselves a little bit more time. They're not at the same kind of risk of losing to this Cloud Dragon Soul that would give so much extra movement speed to the members of EGP that they couldn't do a whole lot about. And now on to finding Tomio.
Does land the spear, but Surdy's in the wings, so I don't know if you really want that fight, Anda.
Yeah, he thought about it. Decided, nah. We can come back to that later.
Yeah, EG is pushing in this mid-wave as they're just looking for some priority. The dragon isn't going to be up yet, however, for another 4 minutes, so there's nothing really to fight over for other than potentially some river vision control, as Viper had the potential to be collapsed on, but will be getting in this recall. The next objective on the table here, Josh, is going to be it's not. I don't think the Rift Herald's going to be up in time, or at least. Okay. You know what? I'm getting confused here just by what I'm looking at on the screen. The Baron will be up in 2 minutes, but this Rift Herald, second for no Org, will be the next objective secured here. My question is, do they want to break open this mid turret and open up the map even further, or do they want to go for some of the outer turrets on the bottom side of the map?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think naturally, like, if you look at how their vision is set up across the board, as we pull up our beautiful pen tool, you see that there's this huge line of vision that they've currently set up, right? They control all of this side of the jungle, and it's going to be giving them a lot of tools in order to play for this bottom side turret. So it's a little bit surprising to me that they're opting to send Viper, who is currently their strongest member, to the opposite side of the map, while his teleport isn't available, because he's the one that we might expect to actually take down Shen, the one who can actually do damage to the structure. But overall, they seem rather happy to kind of wait for the next dragon, wait for Ezreal to get his Duskblade power spike, and really have all of the members come online at the same time. And normally this would be really, really good, because Shiro would be sitting on maybe getting Kraken Slayer, you know, maybe a minute ago. He wouldn't have the extra tools in his inventory. He wouldn't have the extra zeal, the extra Executioner's Calling, and they could be a lot more aggressive in all of these fights. But it might be a misread in terms of how they actually want to play this. So instead, they're going to be committing to this 1-3-1 because they're convinced that Firefire should be beating Surdy in this split.
Well, he's doing some true damage to Surdy, and Anda is here for the support as well. Lands a spear. The Rift Herald, unfortunately, does not take down the second tier turret for no Org, but it does get a good chunk. And it gives an opportunity for no Org to push into this jungle, but still, they haven't really cleared out all the vision quite yet. But it looks like Big and Anda might be going for a potential dive onto Surdy. He's about half health. Now he's about a quarter HP. So Surdy is going to have to be careful about staying on this turret for much longer. And so no Org are able to wrestle control over the second tier turret.
Yeah, this is really good. They aren't going for the 1-3-1. They just go with the 1-1-3 as they bring multiple members to threaten Surdy off of it. And this is kind of one of those things that, you know, we're looking at EGP to punish, because the way that no Org is currently playing is very punishable if they want to go very aggressive onto value. They have missed Flash available. They can get on top of him, but they don't have the vision control, because as we look at the map once again, look at how much vision is currently on the bottom side of the map for no Org. They are doing a fantastic job at actually controlling all of this. They are preventing evil geniuses from moving around, as we've already talked about. They can't phase check these bushes. This is no Org kind of showing that they have a really strong vision game when they want to.
And coincidentally enough, although I'm pretty sure it's no longer coincidence, it is about 45 seconds before we are up for the next dragon. And so having all that vision down in the bottom side jungle is just going to make evil geniuses' lives even harder when it comes to face checking, because they don't know who could be sitting in the bush when they go and face check, as Viper and Big already here looking to potentially punish Surdy, but he's not going to overextend any further, as I believe well, Firefire, this is not where you're supposed to be. He does have teleport, but yeah, I don't think Firefire gets out of this one. So now let's see what Noah can do on the other side of the map. He's getting a bunch of damage down, true damage. Oh my god, wait! He actually beat his Spect! Well, Firefire will give his life for the cause, but mid laner's traded, and this will make the dragon secure for no Org slightly easier.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the kill to come through for Firefire, I'm gonna be honest, but I was expecting him to buy a ton of time on this set in order to give the rest of his team time to do things. They end up picking up the turret, and because they have so much control left over, because they've already pushed in the wave and they have so much vision, they're able to also pick up the dragon without committing too many members to it. So overall, I mean, when I saw 3 members of EGP up here, on the one hand, it's like, I like the decisiveness and their ability to try and play on the opposite side of the map, not necessarily playing towards the dragon, because they can't face check it anyway. But they might be a bit too far behind, because no Org did the proper steps in order to get Viper ahead, in order to get Onda and Firefire enough gold to actually make these kind of plays and buy enough time across the map in order to give them the rest of the macro that they need.
solid 3,000 gold lead for No Org as Tomio might be in a bad spot here. If Audi can land these Qs, Tomio is definitely dead in the water here. Dashing in. Ragnarok is going to be pocked, but I think this is lights out. Flash finally comes out. Firefire has the flash to fall forward, and there's the showstopper. Bam! Good night, Tomio. And Surdy might have dashed in to his death with that Stand United. He's going to be able to come over to Aspect. Aspect is saying, no, hell no. I'm getting out. I don't know what you're going to do, Surdy, but I'm out of here. Now, Surdy, you're going to have to run an extra miles. Put in the distance, but I don't think you're getting out of this one. Yeah, good night, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is the kind of confidence. Look at this. They're not done. They want to go for another fight on the opposite side.
And the teleport flank from Fire. He's here. He doesn't have Showstopper, but if he can get in range for a nice face breaker, he's going to land it onto Shiro. We talked about how they were going to get access to Shiro, but if you just teleport flank, that's going to be your best answer to take down this massively fed ADC. Shutdown will go over to Viper, and with the Flash Spear, but it doesn't even need it because Viper's got the double.
Wow. All right. They finally figured it out. Nowhere back on the map. They're like, don't worry, Josh. We're just messing around for the first 10 minutes of the game. We actually know how to play the game. We're going to continue with the unrelenting pressure. They get a clean ace off of that simply because Tomio is a little bit in the wrong spot. They have so much vision control that the teleport allows them to do this, and they're going to reward themselves with the Baron buff at only 23 minutes. This game was looking rough for No Org. They were down 1,000 gold at one point, and now they're up several thousand, and it's going to mean that they can play this 1-3-1. They can play this flip style. They can look for these flanks because they have so much vision control over and over and over again. This confidence that we're seeing come out of the roster is now paying dividends because we're not seeing EGP set up in the necessary ways in order to counteract some of these major plays.
And some of the things that we have to go back to is that early 3-minute dive setup where Fire tried to come in, and then before that, Anda being able to force Shiro off XP. I mean, when you see those kind of plays come out from No Org and it's botched, it should be a morale booster for EGP to be able to say, hey, you know what, they're messing up, they're capable of making mistakes, this is where we can capitalize. But the fact that No Org are able to clean it up, I don't know if it should still be inspiring for EG to say, hey, you know what, let's start thinking about game 2. They have the capability of making mistakes, let's punish that. Or if it's demoralizing where it's like, damn, they can mess up and they can still come back, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's definitely a situation where EGP can still play these games, but they need to be very cognizant of the fact that No Org are willing to make these plays. They are going to be very aggressive on the map. They are going to overdive sometimes simply because they think that they can pull it off. And if you can bring enough members to actually punish it, like imagine if Shiro and Mist were able to participate in most of that fight. If they were able to move enough members to actually have a full 5-on-5 with set battle lines. Suddenly it looks really, really good for Evil Genius's Prodigies, but they weren't able to do those necessary steps to start with, and now they're paying the price for it.
And as we look towards the series evolving, as at this point, I know it may seem weird for us to be talking about the next game when the game still isn't over yet, but it's an 8,000 gold lead for the side of No Org. So there would have to be a miracle series of throws for No Org to perform before Evil Geniuses get back in the game, or they need to be able to fight with Shiro actually in the backside. And just as I say that, you know what, maybe this is their chance. Ando's going to pop the stopwatch, however, to buy some time. Big T as well, using the Magna Storm to be able to establish a bit of a front line for the rest of the members of No Org, but Shiro finds the first reset, looking for more. Viper has made his way thanks to the Stand United that he stole away from Sturdy, and Fire somehow, where out of nowhere, comes out from behind and slams dunks down on the Shiro. And then from here, No Org should be able to pick up the pieces. No Jinx, meaning no carry to be able to stand up against the members of No Org. And just like that, this should be game 1.
I want to replay watching Fire push through the base there and just like look at Aspect and be like, yeah, nah, I'm going over there now. You have fun over here. I just want to see that power walk as he moves from one side of the lane to the other.
Can we get like Bee Gees music to that?
Yeah, just like watching him bully his way through and just not care about what Aspect is doing, and suddenly a huge clean fight coming through for the side of Nowhere. Again, man.